Hello, veterinary friends. Welcome to the Veterinary Life Coach Podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest for you. His name is Dr. David Fish. David is a Ph.D. who works with professionals who are excellent at their jobs but fall short of their potential when they speak in front of others, whether in formal presentations, team meetings, online sessions, or job interviews. His approach to performance anxiety has an unusual origin. He developed it independently through Zen practice, then years later discovered that Jon Kabat-Zinn, who brought mindfulness into mainstream medicine, had learned from the same Korean master. They arrived at the same place independently of one another. His counterintuitive method has helped professionals reclaim the confidence that anxiety was suppressing. And we veterinary professionals need this, so I'm excited to have you here today. Welcome to the podcast, David.
Thank you, Juliet. I appreciate the invitation for sure. And I got to say, I'm looking forward to this as well. I occasionally, often the podcast appearances I do, they're to very, directly applicable professions or CEOs or people that it's clear that they engage in public
Public
speaking,
speaking, yeah.
right? But occasionally I will get invited to do a podcast with a a host that it seems that's okay. I can see some possibilities in that. And it's great
Yeah.
for me because I wind up learning a lot about your discipline and also get to explore kind of ideas with, what I'm doing in terms of performance anxiety. So I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I think what you do really applies to what we do. So as
Mhm.
I read through your bio and all the information about you, I can see a lot of ways that you can help us. So I'm excited for you to
Sure.
teach us some things today. So my first question to all my guests is to always tell me their story because I like to hear how you got to doing what you're doing today. And you can tell me as much or as little as you want, but
Okay. And
it's
and I'll
fascinating.
yeah, it plays into what I do now. In fact, in a recent podcast, the host said, "Well, what has it taken you years to learn?" And I immediately thought, "Oh, what I know about performance anxiety, even though I started on this path as a young musician."
As a performer.
Yeah, I was a saxophonist and a pretty good one, right? So
Love that.
everybody who was a musician seemed to say, it got me a big scholarship to go to school, to go to college, and in rehearsals and in practice, I do wonderfully, but in performance, especially if the stakes were high performance and stage fright would undermine it. And it
Really?
just bewildered me. I thought, well, there must be something wrong with me. And in particular, because nobody talked about it. Here I am among all these other music professors
Yeah.
and fellow musicians, and nobody was talking about this, right? They might occasionally fess up to, being nervous, but nobody would. I always offered a course on stage fright or anything like
Right,
that.
right.
So, I just thought, well, there must be something wrong with me. So then after college, as was common, somewhat more common back in the day, I decided to explore Zen by entering a Zen center in Berkeley, California. This was in Berkeley, California, right? And it was founded and directed by a renowned Korean Zen master, Sung-san, right? Who was one of the first to bring Zen to the United States, right? In a real true form. And in studying with Song-san, he had this all, you know, uh, this very useful precept that he applied to just about anything and everything. We'd also get, what's the sound of one hand clapping, those sorts of koans. But often his response or his precept to us was only go straight, keep don't know mind, right? And so, you learn to apply that to whatever ailed you,
Right.
worries, questions in life, what have you. And, I remember specifically asking him one time, sensei, or well, I don't call him sensei because he's Korean, but, do you, do you have to be Buddhist to study Zen? And his answer was only go straight, don't know, right? So, all right. So after I left the Zen Center and went on with my life, I wound up becoming a professor of music, a music professor, right? And now my stage fright had turned into speech fright
Mm.
at important moments in particular, like if I'm at a faculty meeting where I'm standing up in front of 100 other professors, and we're discussing these really important aspects of of education and running the school. And you know especially in my early days, my tenure is riding on kind of my performance at
Sure,
these.
right. Yeah, so it's even more pressure.
Yeah, right. You need to be seen and heard, and you need to also present yourself well. So,
Sure.
I would find the speech fright. And again, I would get nervous, think, oh, I really should get up and speak about this, and I have something to say, but, all right. So what I found was this, Joy. So let's fast forward a little bit more. And now I'm a professor of music. And I'm the director of a popular music program at Catawba College in North Carolina. Okay. So I'm teaching young performers. And so many of them are suffering with the same stage
Same
fright.
issue. Yeah,
Oh,
that makes sense.
so, and I thought, I was felt so bad for them, because from experience, knowing how, what discomfort it can cause, and it also just kind of how it undermines what you're trying to do. So I thought, okay, I really want to do something for them. So, I went online and I checked to see what books were out there, and there weren't any.
Mm.
So I like to say,
You had
my
to write
mother,
one.
yeah, I like to say my mother didn't raise no idiot. She left that to my father, right? Yeah. Well, somebody's got to write a book. I'm somebody. I'll
Right.
do it, right? But I don't know anything about helping people with stage fright. So I thought, oh,
Sure.
okay. I got this. I got an answer for this. I'll co-write with a therapist, and she'll bring the expertise and I'll soak up half the royalties,
Right.
So, so we started having writing sessions like once a week. About a month into it, she said, well, David, what do you do about your stage fright? So at that point, it was just about performance, right? Stage fright.
Right. Yeah.
I said, well, it's kind of quirky. I said, when I was younger, I studied with this Korean Zen master, and he taught us only go straight, don't know. I said, I've learned to apply that to, many aspects of my life, but I wound up applying it to performing. And, it's made all the difference. And she kind of did one of those double takes. And she said, well, have you heard of mindfulness? I said, no, no, what's that? She said, well, it's this new type of therapy that is really becoming popular. Here's a book by the developer of it, Jon Kabat-Zinn. Why don't you take a look and see what you think? So, Julie, I started reading through it, and it was like every other page. Well, now that sounds familiar. Uh, that sounds very familiar. Then I looked at the back of the book, and yeah, son of a gun, he had studied with the same Zen master.
Interesting.
So while I, use the term mindfulness for what I do, it goes back to its root, which is what both of us learned from Sang San, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
so I came out with a book, 2018 maybe, uh, the 5-day solution to stage fright, right? And solution is kind of operative word. Never say cure. There's nothing like that. That's a dead man school, right?
Right,
Uh,
right.
but then what I found out is that lots of people who were public speaking and athletes
Mm,
were finding value in the book. So I've
sure.
expanded that now into, I offer 3 online courses: Speak with Confidence, Compete with Confidence, and Perform with Confidence. And they're just optimized for each of those broad audiences. So that's my backstory.
That's very cool. I love
Mm.
that. Well, the parallel or the intersect that I'm seeing with veterinarians is as a veterinarian, I feel like we are always performing because we're either hospital owners and we're performing as a leader and a boss, or we're going into room after room after room with different strangers, basically, a lot of these people we don't know, and having to perform in some way. We have to be compassionate. We have to be sad sometimes. We have to be excited and happy when they have a new puppy. And there's kind of a performance, I feel, because I've always thought this going through it myself, there's a little bit of performance in there. And now that I'm coaching veterinarians, there are many that I coach that have very strong imposter syndrome feelings when they go into a room, fear of making a mistake. So I think that's where you can really help us because that to me translates into what you do.
Oh, absolutely. I, in the town that we used to live in the college where we lived in the same building with the head of the veterinarian clinic,
Oh,
right? That
wow.
we went to. So we would
Awesome.
see him perform for us when
Yeah.
we had a new puppy, or we had to talk about, is this the time,
Right.
end of life. Didn't appreciate, well, I learned to appreciate what a performance was from bumping into him in the elevator when he's off duty in our building and he
Yeah.
wasn't performing,
Right.
for sure. And,
Yeah.
there's nothing phony, I think, in this sense about performing, you
No.
know?
No, I think
You,
it's just a skill that you develop
yeah,
because you're forced to, because every
yeah,
situation requires a different part of
yeah.
you. And it does get very exhausting on some people. So I
Yeah, I
think
can
if they could
imagine.
learn some of your techniques, the mindfulness, get rid
Yeah.
of some of that anxiety over, the being in that social performance setting, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, well, maybe this is a way to start. Um, I've boiled down experiencing performance anxiety into a formula that has 3 factors.
Okay.
One, you perform in front of others. You do your thing in front of others, right?
Right.
And it could be just one patient with their animal,
Right.
or it could be a job interview, or it could be a formal presentation, right? So we need to define audience broadly here, right?
Right.
So that's one. You perform in front of others. Two, they're judging you,
Hmm.
or at least you feel they're judging you,
Yeah, that's a big one.
right? And honestly, the difference doesn't matter whether they're actually judging you or you feel they're judging you.
Kind of
That's
the
something
same.
you, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. It's the same difference, right?
sure.
Okay. Here's the third one then. And this is where it becomes performance anxiety. If the judgment were negative, in some sort of way, it would constitute a threat for you.
Hmm.
Now, sometimes
Yep.
if it's a job interview, it's a big threat. You don't get the
Sure.
job. If
Right.
you're auditioning for Juilliard, you don't get into Juilliard.
Right.
Other times it may be just your esteem in the eyes of that patient. Or it can be just more, existential, if you will. How your view of yourself, right?
Right.
But if those three factors are at play, Julie, study after study has shown that 75% of us are susceptible to getting nervous. And it kind of makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
that
If
it's
you're
our sim
threatened, you're going to be nervous, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and you don't even have to think about it consciously. Your sympathetic nervous system kicks in there. I call it your internal bodyguard
Yeah.
to start protecting you, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us how someone would go about solving for that, or is that too broad a question?
No, no, it's perfect. Okay. And it's the reason the answer I'm going to give you is the reason that mindfulness has, I think, become the gold standard for therapy, or at least one of the gold
Sure.
standards for
Right.
therapy, right? Because it doesn't get bogged down into why are you feeling that, right? Why are you thinking that?
Right.
Why are you thinking this?
And
They're
fighting with it.
judging you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for two reasons. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, it's a good question to ask, when over a cup of coffee, or, at the end of the day, when you're driving home, something like
Right.
that. The time you don't want to do it is when you're speaking,
Right. Yeah.
right? When you're performing. First of all, or the big reason is that you don't want to get caught up in a debate with these thoughts and feelings,
Right.
because you may not win the debate, and it's going to take your attention away from the task at hand, what you
Sure.
should be doing, right?
Yeah.
So mindfulness, and this brings us back to what we learned from San, only go straight. Keep performing, keep doing your thing, keep talking to your patient about this being end of life, potentially end of life moment for your beloved animal. And then the keep don't know mind is how Kabat-Zinn uh, turned this into mindfulness. It's the same spirit, but he just calls it acceptance.
Mm.
Accept those thoughts and feelings. Again, don't get caught up with them.
Don't fight with
Don't
them. Don't try
don't
to
fight
change
with.
them.
Yep. At the very least, it's not the moment to do that.
Right. Work on that another time.
That's right.
Yeah.
I remember having my son came to Japan with me for the first time when he's a young adult, right? And he was going through kind of some young adult things. And we got into an argument, one of our few arguments on Bullet Train, going to up to my wife's hometown, and I thought, this is not the moment to have this argument, right? This is the
Right.
moment to enjoy this trip to Japan. So
Hmm.
in a similar sort of way, this is the moment to, be with that family, right? And so engage. So I've distilled it down. This is another distillation of mine. I've distilled it down to what I call READ method, which stands for remember. We can get into that if you want, but engage, accept those nervous thoughts, and then that brings detachment from those nervous thoughts and feelings, right?
Okay.
Um, doesn't mean they're going to go away, but
Right.
you won't be caught up with them, right?
Okay.
And you'll enjoy a more workable situation.
Right. So the thing I hear often from my clients when I'm coaching them is that they have a tendency to like overthink
Mhm.
when they're in these kind of situations.
Mhm.
And so they feel like it's involuntary. They feel like it's out of their control. And I know that that's not necessarily true, but I think if you could teach them a technique to become more mindful while their brain, that crazy brain is spinning,
Mhm.
to become more
Yeah.
mindful in the moment,
Mhm.
that would help. Because that's what I work on with them a lot is, you can stop it. You have to know that it's happening, but then you just have to not fight with it, if that's
That
kind of what you're saying.
yes, that's right. I guess I would quibble with you on one thing.
Okay.
We don't have so much control. And the exercise I use to point that out to people is just sit for a minute. Sit for 30 seconds with no thoughts running through your head. And unless you're a
It's
Zen master, you
difficult.
can't you
Right.
can't do it.
Right.
Occasionally when I was a college professor, I'd have a student say, "Well, I've been doing that all my years at school here.
I
I've
never
been
have
doing
a
this.
thought.
That's right. I've been doing this whole semester in your class,
Right.
professor." That's no problem. But it's brain chaos.
Right.
We Brain chaos is, our minds. The analogy I use, they're much more like puppy dogs. Our thoughts are much like
Sure.
these, untrained puppy dogs just appearing and brain chaos. So yeah, you're right. You do need to identify it, to recognize it, so you don't run away with it, so you don't let it
Participate in
run
it.
away with you,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, and here's the big thing, Julie, that I think gets overlooked with mindfulness.
Okay.
It's a skill. It's a skill that you have to develop,
And learn.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And exercises like just brushing your teeth mindfully,
Right.
your mind's going to wander, or drinking a cup of tea mindfully, your mind's going to
Hmm.
wander. That's fully natural. That's that. Just bring it back to the sensations of brushing your teeth, drinking a cup. I read a study once that extended periods of concentration for most of us are about 9 seconds before we
Yeah,
have a
that makes
puppy
sense.
dog coming in and you know distracting it. So it's a skill. If mindfulness is not just oh, that's fine. Oh, I'll just
How easy. Yeah. Like
yeah, that's
I
right.
think that's part of the frustration that people feel
Yeah.
is they're like, well, I don't know how to do that. And they get frustrated with the idea that they can learn it and they can practice it.
Well, and then they feel doubly bad because it doesn't work.
Right. Right.
It's like I should actually have one here. It's like those paddles with the ball and the rubber
Yes.
band. It's real simple. It's real simple.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's easy though,
Right. Yeah.
right? And what
Yeah.
makes it easy is the practice. And that's why I'm not a big fan of Mick mindfulness, because it tends to sell it as a real easy, uh, one and done cure for
Yeah.
things.
Just be more mindful.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
now, Zen adherents spend their whole lives meditating, to practicing that, right?
Right.
Returning their attention to their breathing, returning their attention to their mantra. So it's very much par for the course, and something to accept and then to practice working with.
Right. So if somebody's really struggling, like say one of my veterinary friends out there is like, I can't, I get too anxious in the exam rooms. I kind of freak out. My brain starts
Mhm.
spinning. I can't concentrate. Whatever they're saying, because I've heard all these things said, how would you go about with that particular person, this imaginary person, starting? Like I kind of
Yeah,
know what I might recommend and what's worked for me, but
yeah.
what would your recommendation be for
Well,
someone
I'm
like
I'm I'm
that that's
curious.
out
I'm
there
curious.
going, I don't know how to be mindful. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
My brain is too crazy. I can't.
I'm curious to hear what you would say, and then let's see if they align.
Well, I mean, I've gone through this kind of thing myself, and for
Mhm.
me, because I'm one of those people that likes to be on the go all the time, and that's
Mhm.
part of my defense mechanism, I think, of
Mhm.
the anxiety, if I just keep busy enough. So my challenge for myself is to stop when I'm wanting to do something and
Mhm.
just be for a few minutes and just stop.
Yeah.
Or when I'm doing something not mindfully, like say brushing your teeth,
Mhm.
stopping and just standing there for a minute
Mhm.
and then starting to think again about exactly what's happening. So for me, it's more of a stopping practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
And so sometimes we'll talk about that. My approach is usually let's try to figure out what the fear is, what the what the like base fear is
Hmm.
so we can kind of unravel that a little bit.
Sure.
Because a lot of times it's overblown. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, what if this person gives me a bad review? Well, then I'm gonna lose my job, and then I'm gonna lose my license, and then they're gonna make a
Yeah.
complaint to the board, and then I'm gonna not be a veterinarian, and then I'm gonna lose, I'm gonna live on the street. Like, so
Yeah.
it goes
Yeah.
from I'm a little
And
nervous to I'm now living in a box.
yeah.
And so
And
I
and
think
therapy.
sometimes if you
Yeah.
realize where your brain actually wants to go,
Hmm.
you can start to stop it before it goes. Because that's all just fear talking. It's not real. Like,
Sure.
what's the
Sure.
likelihood if this person doesn't like you that you're going to live in a
Sure.
box? Probably not
Yeah,
high,
yeah,
right?
yeah, right. And in fact, in therapy, they call that the downward arrow. Okay, and it's exactly what you said.
Yeah,
If that happens, okay, then what? All
right,
right. So if you lose your license, then what?
right,
Right? I lose my house, right? And then if that happens,
right.
then what? Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, for sure, absolutely. The problem is in the heat of the battle,
Can't do that.
again, you don't want to get caught up in that. I think
Right.
that's a very, very, important exercise to do, in the fullness
Separate
of
from the
time. Yeah.
performance,
Yeah. Yeah.
like without being in that pressure situation.
I would also say and going back to that first time person, that you might be surprised that what you're worrying about is at some level legitimate, right?
Sure.
It might be overblown,
Could happen. Yeah.
right? But it is legitimate, right? Taking this back to our sympathetic nervous system, it kicks in to protect you whenever it senses this threat. And now
Right.
what you said about being quiet, I think also aligns well here too, because that sympathetic nervous system, it has one way of defending you, adrenaline,
Right.
right? It just
Yeah.
pumps adrenaline through you. So your breathing becomes more rapid, your heartbeat becomes more rapid, you're
Right.
thinking, and your vision blurs and so forth. Well, it takes time for that adrenaline to drain out, if you will, be
Right.
absorbed by the
Yeah.
body. So if you can take a beat to just to let it play out, then that definitely can help. Now, I imagine that for most of the veterinarians who are going to be watching this, they don't typically get that beat. They have to go from one moment that was stressful and they did adrenaline got going to the next one where it can kind of be counterproductive.
Sure.
So that's going to be the real trick. Yeah. So I guess one of the things I preach is that you're not broken if you experience this,
Everyone
right?
does, right? That's one of the
75%
most
of us do.
frustrating things is people think they're
Yeah.
alone and they're not.
Well, yeah, and the doubly frustrating thing is we don't talk about it, and so it's this silent burden that
Yeah.
most of us carry.
Right.
I'm so never cease to be impressed that when I get folks together and I get them to open up a little bit, there's lots of, you too? I thought I was the only person who felt that, right?
Yeah.
And I guess it's out of embarrassment or a sense that we're broken or something or other. You're
Yeah.
not
People
broken.
protect it. They pretend like they're fine. I'm fine, kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, sure. And with a veterinarian, just like a professor, you do need a sense of authority in front of others,
Sure.
right? So they
Right.
believe your diagnosis, so they
Right.
believe,
You're there to help.
so yeah, yeah. So, somehow it's probably bound up with those sorts of things for sure.
Yeah. So is it about building up your self-confidence? Um,
Yeah, no, I
like
usually
what would you
find,
say about that?
yeah. So, you know, At first, and with me as a young musician, I thought, well, I just need to be more confident, right?
Practice more. Yeah.
Practice more, be a better musician. Well, it didn't get any better, right? With that. And at some point, I figured out, well, there's some type of disconnect here between being a professional, knowing what I'm doing, but then when I have to do it in front of others, it's performance anxiety undermines it, right?
Sure.
And that's what has emerged in the past few, or well, let's say past 5, 6 years in working with professionals. I find, one of the first things I'll do is ask them, well, tell me about what you do as a profession. And Julie, typically they have lots of confidence. They have lots of know-how. They have
Right.
lots of, right?
Yeah.
It, it,
Smart
it's
people.
yeah, smart people with know-how. They
Hmm.
already have the know-how. It's just
Right.
when they get in front of others and they somehow have to perform in a way
They're
that's related to that know-how. That's when performance anxiety undermines the confidence.
right.
So typically with most professionals, with younger musicians, yeah, okay, you're green still and you need experience. With a young faculty member who, maybe isn't so used to standing up, yeah, yeah. So yeah, you do need more experience to give you more confidence. But for most folks, Julie, most professionals, I find they have all the confidence they need in what they do.
Right. Right.
Right?
It's just that they don't know what to do when they get in that anxious situation.
It
Yeah.
undermines that confidence.
Right.
Right?
Right. So what, I mean, you've kind of told me some of it.
Mhm.
Um, the solution comes from what? From working on your mindfulness every day, being more mindful when you're in the exam room. Like, what would you tell somebody if they wanted to start
Yeah,
today and get
yeah.
better and get rid of some of that performance anxiety?
Both of those things. Absolutely. Practice just like, I don't know, a baseball player would be in the, batting cage,
Right.
practicing batting, right? Before they get into a game, right?
Yeah.
Um, and also, um, let's take this back to my read formula. Remember, I think one of the most powerful things a person can do, let's say a veterinarian, is write down the core values that you bring to those moments.
Mm.
Um, right? That,
Okay.
and for a vet, let's bring it back to the end of life, talk with the family, just because my wife and I have gone through it a couple, 3 times in recent
So
years,
you know
right?
what it's like on the other side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. As the vet, what core values are you bringing to this moment?
Mm.
Right? Maybe their empathy.
Right.
There's probably a number of them that you would be. Maybe I ask you, what?
Patience. Like I would
Yeah.
always, because I'm not a patient person. So in those situations, I really had to pull that out because
Mm-hmm.
it is not something you can't rush. You
Yeah.
have to like go at the pace of the client. You have to be open to their wishes. So openness,
Yeah.
patience,
Yeah.
empathy,
Yeah.
caring in a lot of ways, like trying to, mirror their emotions in some way. I mean, within
Yeah.
reason, obviously. You don't want to fall apart every time you're doing that, but in a
No.
strong way, be there for them.
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay. So the remember part of read
Of
formula,
read. Yeah.
remember, engage, accept,
Engage,
attach, right?
accept. Yeah, I'm
Right.
writing it down so I don't forget.
Is to remind yourself of those core values before you get into the moment.
Ah,
If
okay,
you,
before
if
you
you,
walk into the room.
Mhm.
Okay.
Um,
I love that.
in particular, if it's an especially, this is going to be a especially difficult conversation with a patient, right?
Yeah.
And so remind yourself, and this comes from courage and commitment therapy, right? That's
Okay.
the recipe for giving yourself courage and commitment in the moment to put up with whatever anxiety you experience, right?
Right,
To
right. So
shoulder
being
whatever
willing
activity.
to feel the anxiety is part of the process because you
Yeah.
said you have to engage with it and accept that it's there. Yeah.
Yeah,
So just being like, hey, I'm feeling anxious about this, so I need to like hone in and know what I want to
yeah,
do
and
about it.
actually, be grateful to the internal bodyguard that it's, identifying this threat to you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This is not the time for us to discuss this.
Yeah.
And your way of dealing it is not right. I accept it. Thank you. I'm going to get back to what I need to be doing.
I
Right.
love that. So it's kind of separating. I call the primitive part of my brain the Chihuahua brain because it reminds me of a little scared dog, and it's
Yeah.
just like biting and snapping and worrying all the
Yeah.
time. And so
Yeah.
to me, that kind of makes sense. And so when I'm talking to clients, I'll say, if you can just, when that Chihuahua brain starts to go off, just say, okay, thanks for the warning, but I need to go back to what I'm doing and just be like, thanks for the
Exactly.
warning, but I'm going to proceed anyway.
I
So,
have to, right?
yeah, right.
We can talk about this later.
Sure. Yeah. Put that person aside or that little
Right.
brain, that little voice in your
Yeah.
head aside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. That's
Yeah.
that's mindfulness to a T, what you
Right. I
just
love
said.
that.
Right.
Awesome. All right. Well, what have I not asked that I should have asked before we have to start winding down here? I'm loving this. I could talk for another couple hours. So,
Yeah, I think we've covered it all, but maybe just a recap,
yeah,
and then
please.
maybe that will surface something here.
Okay.
What you're experiencing is perfectly natural. It's just your brain trying to protect you, a part of your brain, something nervous system, when it perceives a threat.
Right.
Often that threat is legitimate. So even if it's misfiring, in the moment, you need to accept it because it can't be right.
Doing its job.
And also, you don't have time. You don't have the energy or concentration to debate it or get caught up with it
Mm,
when you're in that moment of performing. We used that term earlier, right?
right.
So be kind to yourself. You're not broken. I put it, you're perfect, you're perfectly human. 75% of us are prone to experiencing this sort of anxiety. And it doesn't matter age. Study after study, Julie has shown it doesn't matter about age or level of experience. Horowitz, the famous pianist, his wife had to push him on stage, even
Every
at the
time,
end of
huh?
his life. Every time, Carnegie Hall, the crowd is just there waiting for him. Yeah, he perceived it as some sort of threat,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. Well, what if they boo me, right? And I'm out on
yeah.
at Carnegie Hall on stage and everybody hates it.
Or I don't bring the magic. I
Right.
haven't
Or I
brought the
make a
magic this
mistake
time.
or
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I hit the wrong note or
Yeah.
yeah.
So no, I
Mhm.
think we've covered most of it, right?
Okay.
I guess maybe one last thing, and this gets a little deeper with it, is that, as Song San would present this, he would talk about before thinking mind, which is kind of a more, and it's very much part of Zen orthodoxy, if you will, that we're not our thinking. Our thinking is a layer above our mind.
Mm.
It's kind of, he would put it, if there's any truth to the universe, it's been around, millions of years before we've been thinking about what it is. So you're not going to
Oh,
understand it by thinking, right?
right.
Uh,
Right.
but that thinking, that's that bodyguard coming in and giving its interpretation, giving its analysis, and so forth. And it's kind of a second layer that isn't your true self. And that true
Mm.
self, if you buy into that, Zen belief about that, that's what is, kind of the doorway to flow and peak experiences and so forth. It's before our minds come in and start thinking about stuff, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like being just being in the moment. Because I think we've all had those moments where we were just in the moment and we weren't
Yeah.
worrying and we weren't thinking and we were just having a good time or whatever. And I think sometimes we don't realize that we have that capability.
Oh yeah, absorbed in a movie, if we're into cooking, cooking up a great dish, and
Right.
engrossing being, there's this line from Paul Simon's song. I love it. Have you ever experienced a moment of grace when your brain takes a seat behind your face? Right?
Mm, that's a great
That's
line.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so that's exactly those moments of flow and being in the moment, and for athletes, it's being on fire, it's being, so forth. So getting there um, is also bound up with this mindfulness, and it can lead to even greater things, but it's kind of the graduate level study, if you will.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So if you're new to this idea, if you're new to
Hmm.
this and you're out there really struggling with performance anxiety or just being in
Hmm.
front of people in general and having that imposter syndrome or that worry, then there is a way that you can work on this by learning some of your techniques. There's many places out there to learn about mindfulness, but you can start and just
Yeah.
start doing something about it
Yeah,
and
that's right. And
ask for
certainly you
help.
can do it on your own. The it's let's go back to that paddle ball thing.
Right.
You can learn it on your
You
own
can
for
learn it,
sure.
sure.
No, there's no reason to wait. However, if you have an experienced person who can show you some tricks and and keep you working on it and so forth, that can be a help.
Sure. Yeah. So get yourself a coach or get yourself
Hmm.
someone like you that knows about performance anxiety and then
Hmm.
can help you work through it.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, I
Pretty
love that.
much.
I love
Yeah.
that. All right. Well, you tell people where they can learn more about you and the things you do and your classes and all of that.
Sure. I think it's been emblazoned at the bottom of my screen
Yeah,
here.
it looks backwards on my.
Oh, does it?
So is it
Yeah. It-
rise?
here we go. I think I
It's like
too.
it's backwards for me reading it anyway. So I'm assuming on the
Yeah.
video it's going to be backwards.
How about
I
now?
have it in my notes. Oh yeah, there we go. Rise Up
There we
8.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are
That's
a
your
couple of,
website.
you may know there are a couple of technologies for doing these type of podcasts.
Yeah.
Riverside, you need it to be
Makes you flip it.
backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. People keep
Yeah.
telling me about Riverside, and I'm like, I'm just so used to doing it on Zoom now. I'm reluctant to change, but maybe someday I'll switch over to
Yeah,
that.
I
I don't
don't
know
know
if
the
it's
ins
any
and
better.
outs, but anyway,
Yeah.
folks, here's my actual
Riseup8.com.
.com, right?
Right.
And you'll find, lots of information about what I do, including these online courses, Speak with Confidence, included. And they have coaching options, right? And
Okay.
at the highest tier, I, work extensively individually with individuals, and typically this is where for people whose careers rely on speaking
Public
or
speaking.
performing, right?
Yeah.
So you'll also find a free introductory lesson so
Nice.
that you can try out. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
All right. Tell us about before we get off here, because we were talking before we started the podcast about your music. You have an album that came out
yeah,
recently. Do you want to talk about
sure.
that quickly
Sure, I
so people can check it out?
remain a musician, right? And so I was, what would this be? 2023 it came out, 2024. I
Okay.
was able to it's kind of my magnum opus album it, called The Last Troubadour. It was
Okay.
put out by Renaissance Records. It was produced by David uh, Kirschenbaum, excuse me, kind of a legendary producers, worked with everybody from Karen Carpenter to Sting to Cat Stevens and so
Nice.
forth. So I got a chance to work with him, and through him, some really equally legendary studio musicians like Leland Sklar, bass player, and others. And so, yeah, I put it out. It's kind of my big statement, as a singer-songwriter. And it got lots of great reviews and tepid sales, So that's where you go back to your core values. Was I doing this because my core value is to sell a lot of albums or to become a
Right.
household name
Or to do a work of
yeah,
art.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Or make a
Mhm.
statement, share, who I am and so forth. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can go on Apple Music or
Find it and
Spotify.
listen to it.
Yeah, I go by Dr. Fish with Doctor spelled out, and the
Okay.
album is The Last Troubadour. Last Troubadour.
I love it. Okay. Well, I'm going to check that out because everybody on my podcast knows that I'm a music fan because my kids are both musicians. So they know that I spend a lot of time in those realms. So I'll be interested in listening to it. So it was
Thank you. I
exciting.
appreciate it. I
So if anybody
appreciate it.
has any questions for David or you want to hear from him again, if he's willing, maybe we'll come back and do, if they have some questions, maybe we can do a little bit more on this topic because I think it really is something that a lot of us struggle with and that we could use help
Yeah.
on.
That could be very valuable having just a Q&A session from your audience who's has posted some questions about
Yeah.
that.
So if you guys have any questions, send them to my email or go to my website and send them to me. And maybe we'll do that. I think that would be really fun.
Julie, thank you so much.
Well,
Only go
thank
straight.
you. It's been delightful to meet you, and it's really been a good time, and it went by very quickly, so as it always does. But I love all the work that you're doing and what you're teaching to my veterinary people because we all need that idea that we're all okay and that this is
Yeah,
all going to be fine and we're going to have a good
for
life.
sure. For sure.
That's what's important. All right, everybody. So this is Dr. David Lee Fish. I really appreciate you being here and have a beautiful week, everyone. Bye. Bye, David.
Thank you, Julie. Bye.